Jodie Stein. I'm a therapist, MFT, based in San Francisco, Bay Area. And I work to help women in transition to be fierce about loving themselves. And part of that work includes, a major part includes working with women who are going through separation, divorce, and breakups as well. So I do offer a weekly support group for women in that transition, as well as a monthly drop-in group. And I do work with both women and men individually in therapy, in weekly therapy. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I tend to stay away from. I tend to be leery about generalizations, but perhaps one can be made here. I think that the stages of grief are really similar for all humans, but um, socialization and the way our culture um, shapes. So both culture and individual families do shape the way that we feel comfortable to express our emotions. And I think that for men, it is made more challenging by those factors. Um, that there's still a level of shame that men feel and struggle with when they really need help and feeling weak to express that. Of course, there are women who feel the same way. But I think that maybe I do, from my own experience, I see we can say maybe a trend there that it can be tougher for men, particularly to seek out a support group going through this. What we often think of or even talk about as the reasons, like things like affairs or growing apart or one partner struggling with an addiction or depression. There's certainly difficult issues to work with. But I think at the heart of it, I really see as emotional disconnection. That somewhere along the way, we've lost a level of emotional intimacy. And this can happen so subtly, I think. And many of the women who I work with going through, and men as well, going through divorce, express this to me is that, when they're looking back, they can see is somewhere we lost each other. Um, a certain hurt was just never repaired, and it was too intense that somehow it severed an emotional closeness and feelings of safety. Or it could be just over time. It could be that nothing big happened or nothing was memorable, but over time that got severed somehow, and we just fell into a pattern of, you know, everyday life, familiar routines, taking care of the kids, and kind of let it go. And one of the biggest regrets people express is we should have. Why didn't we talk about it? Right? Like maybe it wouldn't have changed anything, but I'll never know. So I just think that that's so important. I know conflict can be very difficult, but it's worth it to talk about it. I think just somewhat. Some of these are pretty similar for both men and women, but there's so many layers to this. It's really a crisis. So one, the loss of the person, grieving the person. Sometimes that's actually not the biggest loss. That there's already such a disconnection that that loss has been kind of grieved or dealt with, adjusted to already. But sometimes it's, particularly when one is left, it's a great loss. Um, Loss of your identity in the world as a married person, and that sometimes surprises people how they feel a sense of there's a lot of meaning that goes into the way that we are the way we set our lives up around that identity. It impacts friends. It being married impacts the way our families see us and treat us. It impacts our like subtly a level of status, I think, particularly in some careers, that it really hurts to lose. Often friends take sides, or they feel uncomfortable or awkward around us. They don't know how to say the right things, and they, or deal with our grieving, and so they move away or we move away emotionally. And financially, we can really get hit. Both feeling really, taken or victimized, or just adjusting to losing some things that are maybe our home or a level of financial comfort that's really difficult, that we have to face. And I think another piece is important, not to do the work, to do our own work, to not internalize a sense of rejection if we've been, if someone has left us, to work with the shame and sense of failure that can come up. It's important to work with reflecting on, once we're over the survival stage of this, so to speak, to work on reflecting about what was my part. How was I part of this dynamic that got created, that this didn't work? And it's not the same as blaming myself, but how might I be playing out old patterns from my early life or from other relationships. So I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that come to mind right now. I think all of those things, the grieving process, but also I think women, a big, maybe particular struggle that I see happening with women is an understanding of the need to, there's a lot of messages out there about, like, you have to be, and friends will say this to you, like, you have to learn to be happy with yourself or on your own. And I think for many women, there's some truth in there they can feel, and so it kind of sticks. But they try, but there's just there can become another level of sort of self-shaming or feeling like they've failed when they can't do that, or even thinking it's wrong to want to be with someone, right? So that can be a sticking place for women in this recovery process. Maybe women in particular, is like, how do I be whole and learn how to be whole and happy with myself, but that, knowing the place also where that I can be interdependent. I don't have to be fiercely independent. I don't need anyone, or I don't have to be feeling desperate and needy, like I need someone to be whole. It's often a new experience that women have to learn. I'm going to say just a few words on this. I don't work with children as a therapist. I think the most important piece to help children move through this in a healthy way is, and it's very, very difficult, is to be there for them, for their emotional needs around this process. It's easier said than done, right? When we're feeling so hurt, maybe powerless, it's normal and natural to, especially if our children are a little older, to want them to get it, to get us to be on our side even. And that is really difficult on kids when we bring our own emotional needs to that relationship as a parent. So really important to get enough support as a mother so that we can be there for our kids, which is not easy because they will have difficult emotions. So when we're probably the most tender that we may ever have been, to be there for a child who is angry at us or hurt or sad, or, you know, and kids are kids. They don't have an adult, they don't, you know, they're not adults who can like be compassionate and understanding of our feelings necessarily, right? They don't have that full capacity yet. So it's really a challenge, but so important. Yeah, it's of course getting the support around some of these issues that I've been naming. I think in particular support groups help in a way that is important. Uh, there's something about, you know, even though intellectually, of course, we know other people are going through this. We may know a few in our lives, we may not. Um, but there's something about being with other women or men who are in this process. I mean, there's a way that there's no one, there's no other way to be, you know, to for people to really get it like someone who's in it or gone through it. So there's something about that that is so validating, can really help remind us that it's not our fault. Um, and there's a way where hearing how other people deal with things directly can help us through some of the difficult, challenging parts of this around fear of being alone, um, the financial piece, the legal piece. We can, you know, get resources that way. It's also nice to, as we start to come into our new identity and being single again, to have an automatic social connection with people who are in that same place and tend to have more time or more interest in growing friendships. So I think support groups it's great if you can do it in addition to individual therapy. Both are really helpful, but I would really recommend a support group through this process. You know, again, I can't really say. I I think it varies more and more, and you know, in our modern world, I've seen and worked with women who feel in the more typical, let's say typical from years ago, male position of being taken, or they're the breadwinners actually, and they are feeling very powerless, very victimized, and feeling that he is using. Is using the financial legal arena as a like a battlefield to kind of get back at her and, for some of the emotional hurts. So it really varies these days.